The walls of Monaco's palace have witnessed centuries of secrets, but nothing could have prepared the principality for the bombshell that Princess Charlene just dropped on the world. After years of silence, speculation, and carefully orchestrated public appearances, the South African-born princess has finally opened up about a family tragedy so devastating that it has shaped her entire relationship with the Grimaldi dynasty and particularly with Princess Caroline, the woman many expected would be her greatest ally. What Princess Charlene revealed in her rare and emotionally charged statement has sent shockwaves through royal circles across Europe and beyond. The carefully maintained facade of Monaco's picture-perfect royal family has been shattered, revealing a web of complex relationships, unfulfilled expectations, and heartbreaking disappointments that go straight to the core of what it means to carry on Princess Grace's legendary legacy. For those who have followed Monaco's royal family closely, the relationship between Princess Charlene and Princess Caroline has always been a subject of intense speculation. Caroline, the eldest daughter of the late Prince Rainier and the iconic Princess Grace Kelly, has long been considered the keeper of her mother's flame. An accomplished equestrian, devoted mother, and sophisticated patron of the arts, Caroline embodied everything that Monaco's high society expected from a princess. She was cultured, European, and deeply connected to the aristocratic circles that form the backbone of the principality's social structure. When Prince Albert announced his engagement to Charlene Wittstock, a former Olympic swimmer from South Africa, the contrast could not have been more stark. Here was a woman whose background was athletics rather than aristocracy, whose native language was English rather than French, and whose understanding of European royal protocol was learned rather than inherited. The Monaco establishment watched with careful eyes as this outsider prepared to take her place alongside the Grimaldi family. But what the public never knew, what has remained hidden behind the carefully choreographed royal events and official photographs, was the depth of the expectations placed on Charlene's shoulders and the devastating moment when those expectations came crashing down around her. Princess Caroline, according to Charlene's revelation, had harbored deep hopes that her sister-in-law would not just join the family, but would actively embrace and continue the passionate legacy that Princess Grace had left behind. Princess Grace Kelly's transformation from Hollywood royalty to European princess remains one of the most fascinating chapters in 20th-century royal history. Her marriage to Prince Rainier in 1956 was not just a union between two people, but a merger of American glamour and European nobility that captured the world's imagination. Grace brought to Monaco a level of international attention and cultural sophistication that elevated the tiny principality far beyond its size and economic importance. More than just a beautiful face, Princess Grace was deeply committed to the arts, to charitable causes, and to using her platform to make a meaningful difference in the world. She established foundations, supported emerging artists, and became a patron of causes that ranged from child welfare to environmental protection. Her passion was not performative but genuine, stemming from a deep belief that privilege came with responsibility and that her unique position should be used to benefit others. When Princess Grace died tragically in a car accident in 1982, she left behind not just a grieving family but an unfillable void in Monaco's cultural and charitable landscape. Princess Caroline, then in her mid-20s, gradually stepped into some of her mother's roles, but the weight of expectation to fully replace such an iconic figure was enormous. Caroline developed her own path, focusing particularly on arts and culture, but she never stopped hoping that someone else in the family would share and continue her mother's broader humanitarian passions. The arrival of Princess Charlene seemed to offer that possibility. Here was a woman who had achieved excellence in her own field, who understood the discipline and dedication required for success, and who was marrying into the family at a time when Monaco needed fresh energy and international appeal. Caroline, according to Charlene's recent statements, saw in her new sister-in-law the potential to reignite the kind of passionate commitment to worthy causes that had made Princess Grace so beloved around the world. The expectations were not explicitly stated at first, but they were there in every conversation, every suggestion, every gentle guidance that Caroline offered to the newcomer. There were hints about charitable organizations that needed leadership, cultural initiatives that required patronage, and international causes that could benefit from royal attention. Caroline's approach was subtle but persistent, rooted in her genuine belief that continuing their mother's work was not just an opportunity but a responsibility that came with wearing the Grimaldi name. For Charlene, these expectations created an increasingly unbearable pressure. Coming from a background where success was measured in split seconds and medal counts, she found herself thrust into a world where success was measured in far more subjective terms. How do you quantify the impact of a charitable foundation? How do you measure whether you are adequately honoring the memory of a woman who died before you ever set foot in Monaco? How do you navigate the complex web of European charitable organizations, cultural institutions, and social expectations while still trying to find your own authentic voice as a princess? The breaking point came, according to Charlene's revelation, during what should have been a moment of triumph. She had been working quietly on a charitable initiative close to her heart, something that combined her background in sports with her growing understanding of Monaco's international responsibilities. She had spent months planning, consulting with experts, and developing what she believed was a meaningful contribution to the Principality's charitable landscape. When she presented her work to Caroline, expecting encouragement and support, she instead encountered disappointment that cut her to her core. Caroline's response, while not intentionally cruel, made it clear that what Charlene had developed did not meet the standard of passionate engagement that Caroline believed their mother's legacy demanded. It was not that the work was bad, but that it lacked the transformative vision and deep personal commitment that had characterized Princess Grace's approach to her causes. The word that Charlene used to describe this moment was devastating, and in that single word lies the weight of years of trying to live up to an impossible standard. How do you replace an icon? How do you step into shoes that were custom-made for someone else's feet? How do you honor a legacy while still maintaining your own authenticity and sense of self? The devastation that Charlene described was not just about failing to meet Caroline's expectations, but about the realization that she might never be able to fulfill the role that the family and the Principality needed her to play. She had come to Monaco as an accomplished athlete, confident in her abilities and ready to embrace her new life. But the gradual erosion of that confidence under the weight of unspoken expectations and gentle but persistent criticism had taken its toll. What makes this revelation particularly poignant is the context in which it has emerged. Princess Charlene has faced years of speculation about her happiness in Monaco, her relationship with Prince Albert, and her commitment to her royal duties. There have been rumors about attempted escapes, forced returns, and a general sense of unease with her position. Critics have pointed to her sometimes strained expressions at public events, her extended absences for health reasons, and what some have interpreted as a lack of genuine engagement with her royal role. Understanding the pressure she was under from Caroline to inherit and continue Princess Grace's passionate commitment to charitable work adds a new dimension to all of these observations. The strain that observers noticed was not just about adapting to royal life in general, but about the specific burden of trying to live up to one of the most beloved royal figures of the modern era. Caroline's motivation in pushing for this inheritance of passion was not malicious. By all accounts, her devotion to her mother's memory is genuine, and her desire to see Princess Grace's work continued comes from a place of love and respect. But the impact on Charlene was profound, creating a sense of inadequacy and failure that permeated her entire experience as a princess. The family dynamics at play here are complex and deeply human. Caroline, as the eldest daughter, had naturally assumed the role of keeper of her mother's flame. She had lived with Princess Grace, learned from her directly, and understood intimately what drove her mother's passionate commitment to her causes. For Caroline, this was not abstract legacy management but personal memory preservation. Charlene, coming from outside this family system, was expected to understand and embrace not just the public aspects of Princess Grace's work, but the emotional and spiritual dimensions that had made that work meaningful. It was an impossible task, like asking someone to fall in love with a person they had never met based solely on stories and photographs. The tragedy in all of this is that both women were operating from positions of good faith. Caroline genuinely believed that sharing her mother's passionate approach to charitable work would benefit both Charlene and the Principality. Charlene genuinely wanted to contribute meaningfully to her new family and her new role. But the mismatch between expectation and reality, between inherited passion and learned duty, created a chasm that proved impossible to bridge. The revelation also sheds new light on some of the more puzzling aspects of Charlene's tenure as princess. Her focus on water safety and drowning prevention, causes directly related to her swimming background, can now be understood not just as natural extensions of her interests, but as attempts to find authentic ways to contribute that did not require her to channel someone else's passion. Her involvement in anti-poaching efforts in Africa similarly represents areas where her own background and genuine interests could drive her commitment rather than inherited obligation. The broader implications of this family drama extend beyond the personal relationships involved. Monaco as a principality has built much of its modern identity around the fairy tale romance of Grace Kelly and Prince Rainier, and the continued glamour and sophistication of their descendants. The idea that the current generation might struggle to live up to that legacy, that the inheritance of grace and passion might not be as automatic as the inheritance of titles and tiaras, challenges some fundamental assumptions about how royal families function. There is also a broader question about the sustainability of expecting individuals to carry on the specific passions and approaches of their predecessors. Each generation brings its own talents, interests, and perspectives to royal duty. The attempt to recreate exactly what Princess Grace accomplished may have been doomed from the start, not because Charlene lacked ability or commitment, but because authenticity cannot be manufactured or inherited. The timing of Charlene's revelation is also significant, coming at a moment when she appears to have found more stability and confidence in her role. The disclosure suggests a woman who has moved beyond the devastating period she described and found ways to contribute that feel genuine to her. Her increased visibility at recent royal events and her apparent comfort in her public role suggest that the family may have found ways to move past the expectations and disappointments that characterized her earlier years as princess. For Caroline, this public acknowledgement of the pressure she applied must be difficult to process. Her intentions were good, but the impact was harmful, and learning to navigate that contradiction is part of the complex process of family healing. The revelation suggests that both women have matured in their understanding of each other and in their approaches to continuing Princess Grace's legacy in ways that work for everyone involved. The public response to Charlene's revelation has been mixed, with some expressing sympathy for the impossible position she was placed in, while others question whether she ever truly understood what was expected of someone marrying into Monaco's royal family. There are those who argue that royal duty always involves sacrifice of personal preference and that Charlene should have embraced Caroline's guidance more fully. Others contend that authentic engagement with charitable work requires personal passion that cannot be manufactured on demand. What seems clear is that this revelation marks a turning point in how the Monaco royal family approaches the balance between honoring their past and embracing their future. The lesson may be that legacy is not something that can be directly transferred from one person to another, but rather something that must be reinterpreted and renewed by each generation according to their own capabilities and authentic interests. The story also highlights the often invisible emotional labor involved in royal life, particularly for those who marry into royal families rather than being born into them. The public sees the glamorous events and the beautiful gowns, but the private struggles with identity, authenticity, and belonging remain hidden until moments like this when the truth finally emerges. Moving forward, the challenge for Monaco's royal family will be finding ways to honor Princess Grace's memory while allowing each family member to contribute according to their own strengths and passions. This may mean accepting that the principality's charitable and cultural landscape will look different than it did during Princess Grace's era, and that this difference is not necessarily a diminishment but rather an evolution. The revelation has also sparked broader conversations about the expectations placed on royal spouses and the support systems that exist to help them navigate their new roles. Charlene's experience suggests that good intentions and family guidance are not always sufficient to ease the transition into royal life, and that more explicit conversations about expectations and boundaries might prevent similar difficulties in the future. For Princess Charlene herself, speaking publicly about this devastating period appears to represent a form of healing and closure. By acknowledging the struggle she faced and the impact it had on her, she has taken control of her own narrative in a way that may allow her to move forward with greater confidence and authenticity. The princess who once felt crushed by the weight of inherited expectations may finally be finding her own path forward as a member of Monaco's royal family. The ultimate question raised by this revelation is whether royal families can successfully balance the preservation of legacy with the need for each generation to find their own authentic way of serving. Princess Charlene's devastating experience with trying to inherit Princess Grace's passion suggests that the answer lies not in recreation but in reinterpretation, not in copying but in creating new approaches that honor the past while embracing the unique gifts of the present. As Monaco's royal family continues to navigate these complex dynamics, the hope is that Charlene's courage in speaking about her experience will lead to greater understanding and more sustainable approaches to royal duty that allow each family member to contribute authentically while still maintaining the high standards that have made Monaco's royals so respected around the world. The story of Princess Charlene and the devastating moment when she realized she could not inherit Princess Grace's passion is ultimately a very human story about family expectations, personal authenticity, and the courage required to find your own path even when that path disappoints those you love and respect. It reminds us that even fairy tale princesses face very real struggles with identity and belonging, and that sometimes the most courageous thing you can do is admit that you cannot be someone else, no matter how much you might want to honor their memory. Don't forget to like this video if you found these royal revelations as shocking as I did, subscribe for more exclusive royal family content, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Hit that notification bell so you never miss our latest royal updates. What do you think Princess Charlene should do next to truly make her mark on Monaco while still honoring Princess Grace's incredible legacy?